Hello and welcome. I am Scrapalock, and this is City of Heroes. We are with Liberty Last, level 45, and so something really dumb happened. So I did a video, which you probably have seen right before this one, where I talked about things that would change in City of Heroes, and I talked about lit RPG novels, and I took that video, which OBS automatically assigns a date and timestamp to as a file name, and I dragged it into the folder that has my COH videos, all the others of which I have named by the season and episode, so that I have them organized. And when I went in there to look at it and review it, it wasn't there, it wasn't in the folder, or so I thought. I was looking at the end, of season 4. And then I said, okay, it seems like it's not there. I don't know what happened. I looked in my delete folder. There was nothing in my delete recycle bin. I looked all over the place. I didn't find it. What I didn't realize is because it was done with the date and timestamp, it was actually at the beginning of that list of files, and it wasn't that long of a list. It was like 5 files that I haven't moved over to my archive that I've posted here. After I post them here, I drag them over to an archive, an external hard drive, so that they get off of my hard drive and don't eat up hard drive space for no reason. And so I I said, okay, I have to remake the video, and I think in that video we hit level 45. Maybe not. I think we had already hit level 45. So in that video, I redid my discussions. I don't know if they were any better or not. And we got into doing stuff for Madeline Casey because we had this mission for Tina McIntyre that I couldn't get done. And so we're now working on the Save a Soul story for Madeline. We've got both story arcs going. This is still the one that I want to cancel. I can do it now, but I'm going to wait. Because one of the things that I've learned is I'll cancel something, and then the game will give me another mission I don't want to do right after that. So we're going to wait. And at the end of this episode, um, somebody remind me, remind me. I'll try to remind myself at the end of the episode to um, cancel that mission. So we are trying to save Madeline Casey's soul at this point. I don't think you realize it's her yet, but we're trying to save her soul. We're going to go to Paris Park, but before we do, and we can get there from Atlas easily enough. What am I doing? No, I wasn't trying to sell. I was trying to buy. I'm so dumb. Sorry. So I think I've been having a lot of trouble hitting the carnies. So I think what we're going to do is grab 2 extra insights. Problem is partly +3, but also that is the Harlequins, or one of them, have the ability to debuff me to an unbelievable extent. I mean, I don't know what they're doing. It doesn't look like they're debuffing me because none of the icons on my character indicate any sort of a debuff. So they're turning on some sort of a power that makes me lose like 100 to hit. By my calculations, against the +3s, I have roughly 108 to hit. Obviously, the cat's capped at 95, but the cap occurs after all the bonuses, penalties, and everything are applied. So I've got approximately 108 to hit because when I fight +3 strongmen, who I don't think have any defense, they're all resistance, I have a 78 to hit them. And that means that since they're 10 levels above me, it's -30, right? -10 per level, I believe. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong about that number, but I believe it's about 10. I think we've checked it before, right? It's roughly 10% per level above and below you. And so I have -30 to hit them. They have +30 to hit me. And since they're 3 levels above me, and so that means I have 108 base to hit. And the Harlequins, or whatever they are, they can make it so that I'm floored. I have an 8.9 or something to hit, which means they're subtracting 100, well, maybe 70, right? It's just ridiculous. I don't know what they're doing, but a minion should not be able to floor me with a single power when I have 108 base to hit now with all my accuracy buffs and stuff. I don't know if it's these guys. She is +3. Of course, I missed even with 95% to hit because that's how this game rolls. Who is it? Brother Monroe is his name. I've been watching him. He does Ultimate Admiral Dreadnought's playthroughs, and he's got his own mod for it. And I've just been sort of watching his playthrough of his mod just to see how it works. I've just started playing the game, and I'm trying to figure out whether I want to use his mod or not. And so he's very concerned with the statistical results of the ship battles because his mod is affecting things like, and also the game has different stats, and so his mod is altering things like the probability that armor penetration happens and stuff like that. I guess this is just a lookup table of numbers, and he's trying to arrange it. Here's the thing: is it these fencers? It might be. We'll see. He's trying to arrange it so that it's logical and it makes sense. 64% to hit there, 81% to hit, and I missed both times, right? 70% to hit, and I missed again. Now she deflected it, 28% to hit, so I don't know what's going on. Anyway, so he talks about, have I hit her once? He talks about the what he calls the XCOM stats or XCOM probabilities, right? If you ever played the game XCOM, and I actually tried to play it on this channel, I couldn't get it to work on my Windows 10 PC, but in the game XCOM, it's a turn-based game where you're, look at this. Do you see how much I'm missing within the 60s to hit? It's ridiculous. I have missed the majority of the time when I have a 2/3 chance of hitting. Look at this. So let's look at my hit rolls. I rolled a 37 there. I rolled a 92, an 86, an 86, a 94, 73, an 85, a 72. You see this? So this is what I always say about City of Heroes. I don't even know if it's really about misstreaks or somehow or other it seems like the random number generator, the average is not a 50. It seems like it averages a roll more like 65. At least for the player characters. I don't know about the NPCs. Anyway, this is similar to XCOM. So XCOM is a turn-based game. I'm controlling a small squad of like 4 or 5 soldiers fighting space aliens who come down to Earth and invaded it. And it's a very cool game, and I really like the tactics and everything. And what'll happen is you can, you have several moves for your characters on the turns, and so you can have your character like hide behind this chair, partial cover, and then you click on the alien and it'll say what percentage chance, right? And a lot of times what you end up having to do in order to hit the aliens is to move yourself into a potentially vulnerable position, and then you better kill them before they go, right? And you go first, and you have like a 90% chance to kill the alien, and of course it misses, and the alien has a 30% chance to hit your character, and of course it hits. And it seems to happen a lot. People get really frustrated by it. You have this like virtual certainty to hit, and you miss, and it's very frustrating. And there are a lot of people who think that the computer's cheating, right, in XCOM, that it's artificially made harder. Here at Glowy, that it's artificially made harder by the game actually sometimes not doing a true random roll and just having you miss even though you got 90% chance to hit, right? And so he sort of jokingly talked about that for one of his tests. So what has happened is several times he was trying to tweak the percentage chance of a torpedo doing damage, and I don't know if it's his mod or if it's the game in the later years, because He had the game in like the 1950s, and he said, I don't normally play campaigns this long, so I'm not well versed in how the numbers work at this point. You know, you start in 1890 or whatever, and he'd gotten to the late 40s, early 50s. And at that point, before that, torpedoes are super deadly, and then what happens is the defense against the torpedoes gets high enough that it's over. Apparently, it's over 100%. And he said that doesn't work. So he lowered the defenses a little bit so that it was in the 90s. He said this will actually still make torpedoes hurt a lot because they do a lot of damage, but it should make it so that they can't just sink a ship in one shot, which is unrealistic in the 1950s, right? So he fired them a couple times. His ships fired them, and a lot of times they miss, and a couple of them hit, and the first like two that hit were both duds. And he just sort of laughed at that, and he said, you know, it's nothing in the mod. It's just XCOM probabilities, right? It feels like the computer always makes the one that hits a dud. And of course, a lot of this is just confirmation bias. You notice it because it's not the likely result. But yeah, City of Heroes definitely feels like XCOM sometimes as well, in that, you know, you guys saw it, right? I had 60+% chance to hit, and it wasn't just once or twice. It was over and over and over again. I whiffed multiple different enemies, all of them with a roughly 60% on average chance to hit. And yeah, it was just because the numbers kept rolling high, and there are probably series of times, you know, sequences you could look at the hit rolls when I'm not investigating it, where I'm rolling below 50 over and over again, and I just don't notice it, right? And when you ask, well, why don't you notice it, right? Why don't I notice hit streaks the way I notice miss streaks? Well, part of the reason for that is that the probabilities are that you're going to hit, right? We have 80% chance or so to hit. You expect to hit. And so when you hit a bunch of times in a row, you don't notice it because you expected to hit a bunch of times in a row. What you don't expect is to miss a bunch of times in a row. So when that happens, you notice it, right? So there is some level of kind of confirmation bias there, or whatever you want to call it. However, the miss streaks happen too much in this game. And look at, again, right, with 60% chance. And I'm still convinced that there's something going on. And I'm convinced there's something going on in XCOM too. Now, a lot of people investigated XCOM, you know, players and stuff, and I guess the answer is probably not. But I think there really is an issue that there's never a real true random number generator in computers. It's always pseudo-random number generators. And we've even seen it in Foundry when we've been playing. Oh, here we go. You see? We've even seen it in Foundry when we've been playing um, uh, Deadlands. Is the crit fails seem to happen in clumps, right? One player will crit fail, and the next one doesn't crit fail immediately, but the next round somebody else crit fails, and then I do a crit fail as a GM, right? It feels like, much like in City of Heroes, where one miss is almost contagious and increases the probability that the next strike is going to be a miss. In Foundry, like a nat 20 in D&D increases the chances that more at nat 20s are going to roll, and a nat 1 increases the chance another nat 1 is going to roll. And obviously it shouldn't be that way. And I think there's something going on with the way random number generators are being called. And again, I've talked about this before. A lot of it has to do with the seed. And I wonder if these games are, and Foundry and stuff, are not doing the right things with the random number seed. All right, now we're taking a chance here, because it is possible that Madeline's going to give me, after finding 20, another one. So we'll see what happens. Let's complete. This is why I didn't auto-complete Tina's. Okay. So now we return to her, and now we got to go find Nathan Crane's files in Brickstown. Doing pretty well on +3s, but I don't know if these missions are actually +3, are they? Yeah, see, this is 45. It should be 48. The 44 is because I did it last level, but even that was on +2, so it's really kind of funny because these contacts have um, caps, right? The missions can't go above the level range for the contact. But I thought it would cap at 44, which is the max level range for the contact, or 45, and then the +3 would give you a +3 to that, right? So like if I went to a level 39 contact, they could only give me a level 42 right now. They wouldn't, right? You'd have to do it through um, a flashback. But I don't know. It's been inconsistent with how it's worked because I've seen them be 48 from this contact. I might be in the video that I didn't post. Unless it's going to change when we walk in the door. Let's take a look. Yeah, okay, it changes when you walk in the door, so it's level 48. So the other one should turn to level 47 when we walk in the door, which means we'd really like to get that one done fairly soon. Okay, so we know where the files are, because we can see it right there. One thing I did want to point out, I won't show you here, but somebody mentioned this in the comments in one of my videos a few episodes back. I was trying to grab something. I was trying to get something from the auction house that was a salvage, and I didn't have any room in my salvage inventory. So I said I'm going to just store, just briefly, just long enough to craft. I'll store something on the auction house. And the way I stored it was I put it up and I put it up for a price. And I just put it up for a lot of money so that nobody would buy it, I guess. Or I was trying to do that. And somebody pointed out that you don't have to... how do we get to this? I guess we gotta go this way. You don't have to actually put a price. You can just stick stuff in the auction house and leave it there temporarily. So, just public service announcement, if you guys are in need of extra storage, you can actually put stuff on the auction house without giving it a price, and it'll just sit there until you take it back. I don't know how many things you can put up there. There's a limit, but it'll tell you when you reach the limit, right? It'll tell you you've got too many up there. I can never stay on top of these round top things. I always run off of them. Should just hover up, but I never think to hit hover. Keep missing. Okay. The other thing I did want to mention about that is, and I mentioned this in my response to the comment where I thanked the commenters for pointing this out to me because I'd forgotten that, or didn't realize that you could store stuff on the auction house. I don't know if I've done it before. Like, I so rarely try to do anything like that that, I just have no, I just don't remember. But one thing I do remember very, very strongly is that when the game first came out, you had a character like mine. It's level 45, and you make a new alt. 2 misses in a row on 68 again. 3 in a row. 4 in a row. Now we're at 27% hit. Now we're at 8% hit. You see how they floored me? Okay, let's just switch targets. Originally, of course, there was no auction house. And you'd get a character level 45, and they've got millions of influence. And at that point, you're like, well, I don't really need all that influence. There was no auction house. There wasn't anything to buy. A few million was going to get you to level 50, no problem, right? Because all all there were SOs, and you could buy a full set of SOs for a couple mil back then. And so I wish I could figure out what she's got going on that's flooring me. Is it really just her defenses? These triangles? It's just obscene that she can get her defense that high. Player characters can't get their defenses that high without like sets and stuff, and this is just a minion. Anyway, so you're level 45. You only have to buy level 50 enhancements. A full set of them is going to cost you maybe 3 million, and you've got 30 million influence, right? What do you do with all that influence? There weren't any bases. There weren't any auction houses. What did you do? Well, you give it to your level 1 that you just created, right? You give it to your new character. Problem with that is that you couldn't. You weren't allowed to email yourself influence. I don't know if you could email anybody influence, but you couldn't email it to yourself. You couldn't trade it to give it to yourself. You couldn't give it to your own character. So the way we handled this was before the auction house came along, we would use another player as an intermediary, right? You have a level 50 character. You want to give your level 1 a million influence to start out with, right? You do the tutorial, get to level 2, come into Atlas Park. You and I are friends, so you contact me and you say, hey, can you do a trade down? And you do this with somebody you trust, obviously, or you'd lose influence because they would steal it from you. So I log in with my high-level character, or low level, doesn't matter. I'll log in with my character, and you log in with your level 50, and you come up to Liberty Last and you hand her 2 mil, right? Then you say, wait here, you log out. We do this in Atlas Park because your character's in Atlas Park or Galaxy City, back when that was still active. You log in with your level 2, and you come up to me, and then I do a trade to you of that 2 million. And so now you've, by 2 steps, indirectly, you have traded me the 2 million that I've traded to you, and so you've given your lower level character to me an influence. And it used to be that was the only way you could do it. And we got a new contact. Okay. And then available missions. And save a soul. So now we're going to stop the ring mistress. Then the auction house came out, right? And it still wasn't possible for you to trade enhancements to yourself. And it still wasn't possible for you to give yourself influence, one character to another of the same account. But what we came up with was a different way of doing it. Let's check the auction house, right? Oh, I sold an anniversary token for 10K. Yeah. I feel like it's not even worth selling them, right? I don't know what they used to be selling for, but I can make 420K total. Like, what do I need that for? I have 30 million. Anyway, so storing, right? Let's just throw one on here. So I could do that, close it. When I open the auction house, it's still there, and I can get it back. Okay, so that's storing it. So here's what we used to do in order to do a trade. You log in as your level for yourself. You log in as your level. You log in as your level 1, 2, 3 character. You've got a level 3 training enhancer. You would drag it on here, right? If we go in enhancements, whoops. Normal enhancements, training enhancements. Let's say enhance confuse, right? There are 0 for sale. So you would take your level 3 confusion enhancement. You would drag it on here. There's none for sale. There's nobody bidding. You'd have to make sure there's none for sale. There's nobody bidding. You'd drag it on here and you'd put it for sale for $1 million. Right? Then you would, and you couldn't do this right away, right? Because you needed, like, if I try to put this on sale for $1 million, it's going to charge me like 50,000 to put it up, and it charges you a fee, and you don't have the 50,000 yet. So what you'd have to do is you'd have to have a few training enhancers. You would take one and you would put it up for a small amount, like say 15,000. You'd log out. You'd log your character in, and offer the 15,000. Now you got some influence to start the trading with. Then you'd put the second one up, and you would put that one up for 100,000. And you could log in your other guy, pay the 100,000. You've got the 15,000 fee. Now you got 85,000, right? Then you could put it up for a million, pay the 50,000 fee, and then buy it for a million. So it would take a couple. You had to make sure that there was nobody bidding on it because otherwise, and nobody selling, otherwise you could end up buying the other guys or he could buy yours and it would mess everything up. Um, so yeah, that's how we used to do it when the auction house first came out and you still couldn't trade yourself influence. And what we tried to argue with the developers, and Statesman was highly resistant to this, and then I think once Statesman left and Positron took over, I think that he was, and I think Castle prevailed upon him, right? What we argued was, guys, we're already trading influence to ourselves, doing things like this, right? Trade downs with other players and so on and so forth. You haven't stopped it. All you've done is made it inconvenient and annoying. Statesman wouldn't hear anything of it, but after he left and Cryptic started working on Champions Online and Paragon Studios became the ones that were working on this game. At some point, they finally said, "Okay, you can mail yourself influence, you can mail yourself enhancements and stuff." I think it. I may somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I might be mistaken. Initially, you couldn't mail influence, at least to yourself, but you could mail enhancements. And so what you would do is you would mail several enhancements to yourself, right? And then um, you would get them and sell them, and it was just escalating quality, right? Or you could mail salvage to yourself, right, and stuff like that. Stuff that you could put up for a fairly low price at first, and then after you've earned enough influence to be able to afford the fees of the auction house for the higher price items, you could put up higher priced items. So there are all these little tricks that we used, and that's where I think it was Castle in particular argued, because Castle played the game, right? And I think Castle did this himself, and was like, yeah, there's really no point to saying you can't hand the stuff to yourself when you can find ways to do it. And everybody was. Then, of course, there were bases, right? And with the superhero bases and the supervillain bases, you can put in a salvage rack or, an enhancement table and just allow everybody to be able to take stuff from there. And there were super groups, and my group did this, where people would go and, like, get really cool stuff and then make it, craft it, and put it on the bench for anybody who wanted it, right? So it became silly to restrict the players from doing it for themselves when they could just join a supergroup and the supergroup would do it for them too, right? And they had to allow that because that was one of the obvious perks of being in a supergroup, right? Was that you could help each other out with enhancements and stuff. I mean, you could already do that by just handing them to each other, but this allows you to do it asynchronously. I'm not going to be on tomorrow, and you are. I could just leave you 5 enhancements that I crafted for you in the enhancement table. Email the rest of tell the rest of the team, don't take it, it's for Joe. And then when Joe logs in, um, get the he can get the enhancement for his character that I left him, right? And so, like, eventually they realized that they weren't actually able to stop us from doing this, and they said it's not worth it. And they started letting you mail yourself influence directly, and also mail yourself enhancements and stuff. Now, we don't have to mail enhancements to ourselves because thanks to the alt invite command, you can invite your alts, and I have done this, and I will continue to do it, such that my future characters will have access to all the enhancements that Liberty Last doesn't need. Right? Once this character is level 50, what I'm going to do is I've got a bunch of cool recipes, and the ones that I don't use for her, I will probably craft and just leave on the set enhancement bench in the base. And same thing with the IO, like the generic IOs. I'll craft the ones I don't need and leave them there, and then future characters can use them. Right, and that saves you influence in the long run. It's sort of like when I was on Rebirth, and they had those card packs that you would get every week or so. I would get a card pack, and you could do other veteran rewards, but that's the one I always chose. And you'd flip open the card packs, and it would be ATOs for various archetypes. And if it was an archetype that I play, like a brute, a scrapper, a stalker, a tanker, a dominator, I would save those. If it's an archetype I tend not to play, like controllers, blasters, defenders, I would vend those. I would stick those on the auction house if they were worth any money, right? But I would just throw them into the base enhancement table. And so with my later characters, as soon as I had 6 slotted, like for the stalkers and the scrappers, as soon as I had 6 slotted, I probably had almost a full ATO set that I could give to that character, right? Because I didn't need them, right? Once this character has both ATO sets, she doesn't need any more. And I got them a lot faster, I feel like, on Rebirth, because there were ways other than reward merits that you could get them, which included flipping over cards, right? And so you'd get half a set, and you'd only have to pay for the other half, right, with merits. Also, Rebirth, they cost influence as well. And I'm not sure if they cost as many merits. I'd have to go back and check. As well as influence, or if they cost, I don't know if Homecoming maybe made them cost more merits because they don't cost any influence, or if they left the merits the same, or even cut them down. I can't remember now. I feel like it cost over 100 merits for some of the enhancers on the ATOs. Like, that it was like 100 or 150 for some and 225 for others on Rebirth. Plus influence was actually more expensive. But I'm not sure. But because you could flip them over with cards, I often got them early because I had, especially once I had done this with one character, I had so many of them, right? When I started out playing a Stalker, I saved all of my Scrapper, Tanker, and Brute ones. So that I went and played a Brute. I think I had 3 or 4 of them already saved up. Look at this. 3 misses in a row at 2/3 chance to hit. Another miss at 87%. Another miss at 86%. Or no, 68%. So what we're looking for here now is the Mistress. So she's going to probably be... Well, she's not going to be a Master Illusionist. She's going to be a Ring Mistress. So they're not quite as bad. The Master Illusionists are horrible mostly because of the spam, right? Because they summon phantasms that summon phantasms. And so you've got like so much spam coming at you of the visual effects and all of that other stuff. It's like I can't even see what I'm doing. I rarely ever, I mean, I think I face planted to one of them once with one of my characters. Like, I rarely die to them. It's just that it's frustrating because there's so much visual effects spam coming at you. And my guess is the Ring Mistress is going to be around here. Oh, there she is. Madam of Mystery. Okay, so let's up. Oh, she is debuffing my 2-hit. Right. Because you won't see it while we have build-up going. But she's debuffing my 2-hit because you can see the darkness. The darkness is always 2-hit debuff. Usually. Now, one of the disadvantages that Carnies have against me is that they do a lot of psi, the bosses. And my character is psi resistant. We have 47% resistance and 20% defense. So we defeated her, now we have to defeat all the minions in the area. Right, because the game basically spawns them together, and once you've defeated everybody close enough to her, since this isn't a defeat all, it should end the mission, but we'll see. How long have we been going? 34, okay, so we will finish this mission and then we will stop. So you gotta watch out for these guys. Also, they do have a terror power that can then debuff your 2-hit because you're scared. But I don't think he was able to get it out on me. Okay. Somebody else around? Back here, I guess? Yep. Man, that thing is so good it can one-shot red minions. The energy transfer. And that's the mission, guys. I think we'll stop here. We'll head on out. We got a clue. And we are fighting the Madam of Mystery. We've got a carnival mask here and saving a soul. So we got a well-crafted porcelain mask. And that's this one. And of course, it's the mask that Madeline is using, and it's going to turn her evil, or it's already turning her evil. But we will worry about that in the next episode. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Until next time, I am Scrapperlock, and this has been City of Heroes.